2, 3, 4. Think Macho Man's going to get. And I'll be interviewing Randy Couture in about 9 minutes. There he is. There's my link. I could be live. Let me check. There we are. Macho's getting me hooked up. Got a little pussy caper going on. Dun, 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 dun. Yep, I got that right there. Boom. There I am. Hey, when I'm with Daryl Gwynn. Look at that right there. NHRA. So I can turn my music down right now. So it was definitely a miscommunication. Randy, I went back and I had to take 100% responsibility on this because when they were trying to book Randy with me, their handler said 11 or 2 PST, Pacific Standard Time. I said, yeah, I'll see you at 11, just assuming I'm dealing with Eastern Standard Time. So it's 100% my fault. But we'll have a good interview with Randy. I've had Randy on, a lot. Quite a bit. Probably, I used to have Randy on pretty much every, here, should we put that over there? Yeah, there you go. I used to have Randy on with every one of his pay-per-views. I'm trying to think of when I started getting involved. I started getting involved in like UFC 57. I think UFC 57 was, no, let me see here. Because I was there. Okay, yeah. UFC 57 is when I started going. And that's because it's February 4th, 2006. And I was at the Mandalay Center when he fought Liddell. I think that was Liddell 3. I think he got beat in Liddell 3. I think he got beat in Liddell 3. And he came back and fought Tim Silva, that big fucking like 6'9" dude. And that was in Columbus during the Arnold Classic. So I went out there and did like an appearance for ProSource protein bars. They paid me, and then the UFC paid me. And then let me see. I don't think I hit UFC 74. I don't think I hit Lesnar. Yeah, I think I only saw him fight 2 times. UFC 57 and UFC 68 are the 2 times I was there. But Randy would come on my show a lot. So, and now Randy is I don't know what the fuck he's thinking. But he's going to try to do NHRA drag racing. I should tell him I need to get him in touch with my friend Tony Stewart, who just started this a couple years ago and is now, I think, is Tony still winning the points? NHRA top fuel dragster top fuel standings. Tony Stewart, 700 points. The 2025 NHRA top fuel standings are led by Tony Stewart with 700 points, followed by Sean Langdon in second place. Tony's got like a 76-point lead. Anton Brown, then my fellow SCAG, Justin Ashley, and then Doug Coletta. What the fuck if Tony wins? That's going to make him the greatest of all time ever at everything, isn't it? IndyCar Championship. NASCAR 3-time championship, IROC championship, WKA championship, which is World Karting Association, and then an NHRA. I don't think a lot of people can dispute that. So we'll wait for Randy to hook up here. 30 matches, 19-11, 7 by knockout, and then he got knocked the fuck out 7 times. He submitted 4 guys and then got submitted 3 times. He won. Decisions were his friend. 8-1 on decisions. Started this whole thing at UFC 13 back in 1997. That was in Augusta, Georgia. And he had to fight 2 times that night, and he won both. He was first guy ever got beat by some dude never even heard of. Oh, it's in Japan. Japan was not good to you, Randy. I'm going to talk to you. But Japan, I'm going over your stuff here, Randy. Japan was not good to you. The fuck out of Japan immediately. But then he went and beat 2 dudes in Japan. And then he came back to UFC 28. I think I got that written down somewhere around here. Hold on. Boom, boom, boom. UFC. I got all my fucking notes here. Returned to UFC against, I think it was against Randleman. Yeah, Kevin Randleman. Beat him in Tika. Beat him in punch. And I don't know why. He beat. I always thought Randy was an on-the-ground guy, but I'm looking at his shit, and it's a lot of it is punching. I thought that was Randy's, Randy wanted to get you down to the ground as fast as he could. So, Randy is a fellow SCAG guy like me, and I don't know. I'm going to ask Randy how this all worked out. Like, were you at I think you said he was at Panoma last year, and maybe got to talking to Randy from SCAG, a man's man from Mayville, Wisconsin. Got one of these for you. So I'll have the internet pod up here. I got my shit ready to go. And Randy should be calling me here within the next minute or 2. I didn't know. Did he get... He got beat by Lesnar. I don't know if that's a bad topic. I think Lesnar killed him. I'm going to ask him, how fucking big is Lesnar? Like, is he just a fucking monster? Is he an absolute monster? And how much money are they making now compared to what he used to make? Right? Did you know Randy spent 6 years in the U.S. Army and he was a sergeant? Did you know that? I bet you Randy could whip some ass. Hate to be his kid. Start talking back to him a little bit. Get your ass whipped. Randy Couture made a cameo appearance in the direct-to-video. I'm going to ask him about Steven Seagal. I'm going to ask Randy about him. There's Randy right there. What's up, Randy?
How are you, Bubba? What's going on, man?
You old-looking motherfucker. We're getting old, aren't we, buddy? We used back 06 and 07 when I was running hard and you were running hard and you were the champ. We were young as fuck. We didn't even appreciate what we had going on back then, did we?
You might be right. You might be right.
We didn't even appreciate that we would be some old motherfuckers. Now you're trying to jump your ass into a pro mod. What the fuck are you thinking, buddy?
You know what? Like fighting and acting, some things just fall in your lap, and you got to decide whether you want to walk through that door or not. Had the opportunity to be a race car driver, and I said, why not?
You're already a fucking badass, and you've already, like had the hottest women in the world, and you've already made lots of money. You got 4 grandbabies. What else is left? You might as well go 215 fucking miles an hour, right?
Yeah, might as well strap my ass to a rocket. Let's go.
Did this all fall into your lap because you met Randy from SCAG? Did you know that he's a very good friend of mine?
That's amazing. Yeah, well, he's certainly been the impetus in SCAG Racing, and how he chooses to market his company and all that. He's a very interesting guy. And I was in Pomona with the opportunity to start driving a car and met him there, and we connected almost immediately. Very interesting guy.
And you know what?
Love his values, love what he stands for. How he treats his employees and
Randy,
all the people that work for him.
Out of all the people, like from Dana White, which I love Dana. Are you and Dana on good terms?
We're not on bad terms. I mean, I don't have an issue with Dana. I think he's had an issue with me and me trying to protect my, my legacy and my profession when I fought for them and, took them to task over their crappy contracts and a bunch of other things that kind of put me on the outs.
So anyway,
but it is what it is.
But from Dana to just everybody that I've met that owns a company and runs a company, I've never met a CEO that genuinely cares about his people more so than Randy. Like and when he talks to you, he doesn't blow you off. He'll take time to talk to you. He gets to know you.
Yeah.
When you're there, when you go to the races, he makes sure all of his dealers have water and make sure you're on your pit box. Yep. And he makes sure everybody gets to put the little headphones on and go up to the burnout strip. Like he genuinely, for running a multi billion-dollar corporation, because they're SCAG just one of their many companies under the Metalworks umbrella. Mayville, Wisconsin. And so I'm sure Randy took a liking to you just because you're a guy's guy. You would be good for the brand as well. So if we can just get your stupid ass to hit the gas and not be afraid, we're gonna have a natural, just a great thing. The toughest lawnmower and the toughest power equipment, and one of the toughest dudes ever to be in UFC. Now it's on you. How big of balls you got left, Randy?
Hey, I'm ready, man. I've been training in a 9-10 second car for Frank Hawley's drag racing school.
Right.
Last weekend in Tucson, with one of Nathan's cars, and gotten used to that speed and that power. And I've probably done 20 runs between those two in those cars. And then last Saturday in Tucson, I got to sit in Al Capone and run Al off the line.
That's a
37 second car.
That's a 37 Chevy that's owned by Al Capone.
Yeah.
And it's, 500 cubic inch?
Yep, 521. Fully blown. I mean, this thing is ridiculous.
Those Pro Mods, they're like between 208 to 216 at the line.
Yeah, dude, it's unbelievable. The Pro wheels don't come down for 200 feet after you launch.
I know
that car.
you're not. You don't even settle it down till third gear. I mean, right?
It was an eye opener for sure.
You know who's a really good friend of mine?
I need more seat time. I feel like we've been rushing this. This whole thing fell on our lap. You explained my experience with Randy Grady in Pomona to a T.
Yes.
That's exactly how it went down.
Same thing with me. 3 years ago, I'm a stupid radio guy, whatever the fuck I am, and I go up to the SCAG. Well, one of the SCAG crew guys is Bubba Army. He likes the show, so he has me come over, and I'm looking at the dragster, and I'm looking at the fucking funny car shit, and I'm just thinking, wow, this is pretty cool. And they let me go behind the ropes, and I'm looking at them put new heads on the car and whole 9 yards. And Randy walks up to me, and he goes, well, you must be somebody important to be able to get past the line. And I go, well, I'm just some stupid radio guy. He gives me his card. And I've been a SCAG endorser / ambassador ever since. And just he's probably one of my most favorite guys in the world, just based on how he's the nicest, salt of the earth Midwestern you will ever find, period.
Yep, I agree 100%. That's exactly how it went down. And him and I connected immediately, talked for over an hour, standing in the pits.
Yeah.
And I've been a fan of racing for 12, 13 years. Pomona was my very first race almost 12 years ago. And so to be back there and looking at it with different eyes, now potentially with an opportunity to drive, it's a whole different animal.
And here's the thing about
sitting up in the stands, it looks really easy. Oh, they just go fast. They go in a straight
no,
line.
fuck no,
And there's
no.
so much more involved.
Everything from the burnout to not jumping the jumping the lights to getting through the gears, especially in the Pro Mods. You're really now listen. The dragsters and the funny cars, they're smashing the gas and holding on, but you're running through at least fourth gear, I think, on a Pro Mod.
Three gears.
Yeah.
Nathan, my crew chief at Dominate Racing, is doing his best to simplify as much of that for me as possible. And I'm definitely getting the procedure down. The trans brake is a crazy thing, and your natural reaction when you got the pedal to the metal at the line, and that trans brake button held in so you can launch the car.
Yeah,
when you pull your hand
off that button, you're going.
Pull your foot.
Yeah,
you pull your foot too. There's so many intuitive things that you have to overcome. Kind of that fight or flight. Same with fighting. Walking up in that cage or out on that mat, your butt wants to pucker up, and you don't do the things you normally want to do or you're trained to do. And I just need more seat time. You just need
to get a little bit more instinctual so that it's more just like fighting. I mean, just like fighting. I mean, knowing your fucking ass, I think you went out. I think you won a state championship your senior year in Washington. So
correct.
You weren't a fish or nothing. So, but the very first time you wrestled, I'm sure it was like very new to you, and you didn't know what the fuck you were doing, and you fished out, and because they probably gave you somebody that was a stud, because when I wrestled in high school, they always tried to make you quit. They would give you like a guy to fucking rub your face in the mat and make you try to make you quit, and if you didn't quit, then you hung on. Then then perhaps you had it.
You're on your way.
I didn't know that when you were. I think it might have been in the Army, and you were a sergeant for the 101st Airborne, and you went to sign up to fucking wrestle for the U.S. military, and you're a freestyle guy, folk style freestyle. And they fucked up and put you on the Greco-Roman team, and before it was going to take too long for you had to wait like another however many months to get on the right team that you said fuck it, and you just went with the Greco-Roman and you won there.
Yeah, that's very close to what happened. I had gotten on the bracket in a freestyle tournament in Baumholder, Germany. Was a fifth corps championship. Which was a regional championship that would then give me a chance to try to wrestle at the European Theater Championship, which was a tryout for the All Army team. And I was very comfortable, never done Greco in my life. And I just finished a freestyle match, and they start calling my name on the Greco mat. And I'm like, what the hell? So I run over to the head table, and I'm like, dude, I'm in the freestyle bracket. I'm not on the Greco bracket. And he said, no, you're on the Greco bracket. You wrestling or not? And I'm like, shrug my shoulders. I'm like, oh, all right, what the hell? I'll wrestle. So I went right back out on the mat and wrestled the Greco match and ended up winning that tournament.
And isn't Greco
qualifying?
Isn't Greco all upper body? Like it's just throw. It's all throws. It is. Isn't just all
it's
throws.
It's like judo without a gi,
right?
Basically,
right.
So, and I fell in love with it. And the Army and the military programs are very directed towards Greco. Tough for us to compete in freestyle with all the professional coaching that those guys get at the collegiate level, because almost all those collegiate athletes wrestle freestyle too. That's one of the two Olympic styles. Freestyle and Greco are the two Olympic styles.
Right.
And I just gravitated towards Greco. And little did I know that of all the wrestling styles, Greco was one that translates directly to fighting, to MMA, because of the upright posture and the clinch fighting in the cage and the solid barrier. That's a great style for transitioning to fighting. I had no idea that's the groundwork I was laying in the military for 6 years, wrestling for the Army. Qualified for that 88 Olympic team, and that's what got me the college scholarship at Oklahoma State. And went on to wrestle for 4 years at Okie State. Started wrestling freestyle a lot more then. But the Greco was where it was at, and that was the style I really fell in love with. Mostly because we didn't have that many Greco world champs or Olympic champs. So I'm like, well, hell, that's what I want to do. I want to make my mark there then.
I remember I've seen you twice. We used to do interviews all the time when you would come to Tampa, and I don't know, I had strippers in there back then. One time I had Tito in there, and we had she went on to be the biggest porn star in the world. Her name is Akira. And I discovered her in New York, and she came to Tampa to come live with us, with me, and like whatever. And we had Tito in there, and Tito's in Tampa promoting the fights in, I think, Mandalay Bay or whatever. And
Okay.
now this bitch was crazy. Like she liked it rough and all this kind of stuff. Well, Tito, how Tito is. He's a fucking absolute nut job, and so we're like, Tito, she wants to get choked out. And Tito's like, okay. So Tito put her in a rear naked and actually put her to sleep. And then
funny.
I remember I was in Columbus when you took on Tim Silva.
Yeah,
And
that was one of my favorite fights. And then Tim and I were friends, but
yeah, but he did. I'm not trying to talk shitty about anybody, but to me, Tim looked awkward. Tim was in that little bit of period where the heavyweight maybe division was down a little bit, and I mean, I don't know. Was Tim that tough? You beat him that night. I think you knocked him out, didn't you?
no, I didn't knock him out. We went all 5 rounds. It was a dominant performance, and I'm glad it went that way. Everybody was questioning me at 44. What am I doing coming back out of retirement, and why am I fighting this giant? So I was kind of glad it went that way. It was a grinding match. At 44 years old, I managed to win every single round. Tim's a big guy. He poses some interesting problems. Tim and I connected, and Tim's a very friendly, nice guy.
Very nice guy.
The problem is, when that red light comes on and the camera's in his face, his social skills go right out the window. And that's why some of the fans were kind of hard on Tim. But if you get to know Tim's a pretty good guy. I liked him, and we always got along. He came out and trained with us at Team Quest for 3 weeks.
Did he?
In my house. Back before he was ever the champ, before he beat Rico Rodriguez.
Yeah. And then
we connected, and Tim and I were good friends, and I knew that was going to be an issue for him going into the fight, because he had he had to talk some rhetoric,
right,
create some heat,
sure,
get himself in the right mindset to go out and do his job, which is to punch a guy in the face. And I think because we were friends, he was going to have trouble doing that with me. I have that wrestler's mentality. I had to wrestle some of my best friends for the spot on the team.
Yeah.
One of us was going home pissed off, but we were still friends. It wasn't like that. So
I never knew you to be. I've been looking at your record now. I went through and did a little research. I didn't know. I always thought you were a get the guy down as fast as you could guy, and and just absolutely try to shred him down there. But I see I see all the. I think you beat Gonzalez. You beat him standing up. I think you beat. I'm trying to look at all the ones that you beat standing up. Did you beat Tito standing up first time?
I took Tito down. Tito, and if
you had to take that big gorilla down, didn't you? You got to take that one.
Well, 96% of the fights he wins, he gets that takedown.
Yeah.
And again, has that collegiate wrestling background where you can float over a guy, bludgeon him with elbows, pound the crap out of him, and make him quit. And that's how he won most of his fights. So I knew in that fight with Tito was going to come down to who took who down, wrestling. And it wasn't about standing in front of Tito, but I certainly had to sharpen my striking tools to be able to engage in that realm of the fight to get close enough to take a guy down. If you come out with and are a one-trick pony and everybody knows, oh, he's just got to take you down, that's pretty easy to counter. But if you become effective with your striking and your kicking and all those things, and I learned some valuable lessons, certainly with the kicking with Pedro Hizzo and Mo Smith, and they were very important parts of that journey for me. But I had to be able to strike with somebody to make them wrestle me.
Right, because if they know they're going to the ground, then they don't have to worry about defending the strikes at all. They're just gonna sprawl and just not they're gonna work on all that. But like when I think Liddell and at UFC 43, you went. I mean, and here's Chuck who. The knock on Chuck was, he was just a stand-up guy with that overhead right, and I think you TK'd Chuck with standing up on 43.
Yeah, and I knew. I mean, Chuck had a great collegiate wrestling background at Cal Poly, and he used his wrestling very defensively to make guys stand with him because his kickboxing game was strong, very strong.
Really,
those long levers and that unique timing to be able to catch guys right on the end of those punches and knock them out. And I had to make friends with that. I knew, if I stood around in front of Chuck, he was going to find that range and he was going to make my life tough.
Yeah.
I said, the hell with that. If he's able to knock me out, good for him. I'm hitting him first. I'm stepping in the pocket, using that overhand right, and trying to hit him first and get him off balance. And then I should have a unique and reasonable ability to take him down and take him out of that striking game. And that's exactly how that game plan went down and how it worked. So I hit him, which I don't think he expected, and
Nope.
then was able to take him down 2 out of the 3 rounds.
I think
And
Chuck
wear
may.
him out.
I think Chuck, and I'm not saying anything against Chuck. I think Chuck may have mistrained for you. Like I think Chuck may have, and I don't say that as a knock on Chuck, but I think Chuck didn't expect what you were going to bring to him.
Well, I think that surprised him. And if you look at the second and third fights, he completely changed his tactic.
Completely
he
different.
Started moving his feet.
Yeah.
He didn't post his feet up and stand in the middle and dare you to come in like he did before that first fight with me. He got on his bike and made me chase him. And that was a much harder guy to hit and a much harder guy to take down. And the second and third fights went his way. He get you chasing him, trying to chase him down and catch you coming in, trying to get your hands on him or land a punch. And that's exactly how he changed in the second and third fight.
If we were to talk about is Lesnar that big of a monster? I mean, you obviously fought him. Is he just that fucking just that?
It's not so much that he's huge. I mean, Tim's bigger.
Yeah, Tim's
There's
bigger.
a lot of guys bigger,
right?
But athletic as hell for a guy that size at 290. I mean, he walks around at 290. Collegiate wrestler at Minnesota, Division I national champ. He's a very good wrestler and a very athletic guy. I mean, he tried out for the Vikings. He didn't make the team, but he still made it through those tryouts. So that's a very athletic guy. To find a guy that size that's that athletic is very rare.
Could he have stayed? Could he have stayed and gone on a while, or did he get kind of exposed on how to beat him when they finally?
I think he just never made friends with the fact that he was going to get punched in the face.
Right.
I don't care how big, how strong, how athletic, how fast you are. You had better make friends with getting punched in the grill. And we saw that against Velasquez and a couple of other guys. When he got hit, it kind of freaked him out. He just never made friends with that, and I think ultimately that was his undoing. Until he make friends with that, you're really not going to get into the trenches and have that kind of fight.
I got a story, Randy. We did this celebrity boxing tournament once in Tampa, and there was this radio personality that didn't like me, and I didn't like him, and he was a little bit taller than me. So I trained, just straight boxing, like big 12 ounce, maybe 14 ounce gloves, and like it was going to be 3 2-minute rounds because, we're all out of shape. And so the only reason why I won is for 2 reasons. One, all my coach did was I just jabbed. All I did, whole practice long would be just jab, jab. And then for the last 10 minutes of practice, I'd have to put my hands down and let them hit me in the face. Not full speed, but half speed with headgear on because we were going to have headgear on. But and just to let it kind of condition to me what it's like to get your bell rung and how to get through it. And so when I did get my bell rung, or the guy got one on me, I'd already had that feeling. Meanwhile, the dude that I fought, he just standardly trained. So when I rung his fucking bell, he had no idea about, how it scrambles your eggs a little bit. And I single-handedly knocked him the fuck out. Just because the last 10 minutes of practice, I'd put my hands down and my coach would smash me around a little bit, and I didn't get freaked out when I got hit the first time. Because most people have never been. Most dudes that are rolling around have never been hit.
Fight. They don't know.
No, they don't. Most dudes don't know how to fight. Let's just be honest. Most dudes don't know how to fight. And the other one is nobody's really had your fucking chin checked. Most dudes roll around and have really never had, your chin checked.
Yeah, it's interesting. I in my early days after UFC 13, winning the heavyweight tournament, I fought twice that night.
Right.
And relied very heavily on my wrestling background.
I think that was
those guys down.
Tony and Steven.
Yep.
Stephen
Graham
and Tony
Halama.
Yeah, Halama.
And then they wanted me to fight Vitor Belfort in my second show in a super fight. And this guy's boxing and killing everybody. So I went down to Boxing Works in Huntington and Hermosa Beach.
Right.
And worked with Scotty and had to get used to, and Eric Paulson.
Well,
Eric was
and
one of
I
the only
remember
black
that.
belts in
I
jiu-jitsu
remember
that
that.
would work with me.
I remember that Belfort guy was supposed to be all the fuck that, like
He was.
like he was all fucking that. I remember that was like UFC 15.
Yep, UFC 15.
Yeah,
He had 4 fights to that point, and an aggregate time in all 4 of those fights was 3 minutes. I mean, he was just smoking guys.
just smoking him.
And Eric Paulson would stick me in the corner at the end of every practice where I had nowhere to go and just start throwing punches at my face. Because what are you trying to do? You're trying to overcome that fight or flight instinct.
Right.
And you haven't been punched in the face or have somebody trying to punch you in the face, it gets your attention. And you either want to stand, put your chin down, and figure out how to strike and survive in that, or you want to turn and run the hell away. And in a fight, you can't do that.
No.
You've got to stay and engage. So that was a brilliant drill that Paulson put me through that helped me get used to having somebody throw stuff at my face.
And
Figure
then
out how to slip, figure out how to parry, how to
what
pick those punches off and
what
not just take them in the grill.
what's the hardest that you ever got hit, Randy? That
Chuck, the
Chuck.
second Chuck fight.
This Chuck
The only
number,
time I was
Chuck,
ever knocked out.
Chuck 2.
Yeah, he and he poked me in the eye in that round. It kind of irritated me. I was just coming off the eye surgery from the
Right.
Rico Rodriguez fight.
From the broken orbital.
And so that was one of the few times I ever got kind of irritated in the middle of a fight. And I came at when I was recovered from the eye poke, I came after Chuck really hard, threw a big left hook, missed. And that big miss, that big swing and a miss put me right in line for that straight right hand. And man, that's a crazy experience having that little piece of time go away. 1 second you're there, the next second you're looking up like, who the hell are you guys?
So
what
like,
happened?
was that really one of the very first time that you got, as they would say, it knocked the fuck out? Like, was that really?
That's the only time I got knocked out. I'd been flashed a couple times. Danny Henderson hit me with an H-bomb, at the JKD gym in downtown Portland where we used to train back then before we had Team Quest, and knocked me on my ass. That was my first time getting flashed.
Right.
And I got flashed a couple other times in fights. The third Chuck fight, I didn't get knocked out. I got flashed. The Lesnar fight, I got flashed. I got knocked on my butt. The Machida fight, that kick to the mouth knocked out all my front teeth. It didn't knock me out, but it flashed me. When my butt hit the canvas, I knew exactly where I was at. But
now, when you get flashed, Chuck, I guess there's probably in practice no way to really work on getting flashed because you don't want
to work on that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you don't. It's not nothing you want to.
It's a concussion event. You're not going to prepare your being for that crap.
So you
need to avoid that in practice as much as possible.
Right. So I'm saying it's like you can't practice it. So it's fight or flight at that point because you can't practice getting flashed. So at that point it's completely instinctual.
Parrying all those punches, slipping, moving, making a moving target, and keeping those defenses, those elbow destructions, and those hands in play to try and pick off and mitigate as much of that impact as possible. That's the training you do, but you don't train to take a shot.
No.
You try to avoid taking shots. And I see these guys in gyms punching their students in the face as hard as they can, like somehow you're going to prepare your being for that. It doesn't work that way.
No.
You're creating concussive events that are going to accrue and affect the longevity of your career. Don't do that.
I think you beat Randleman standing up. UFC 28.
I took Randleman down.
Are you sure?
I'm positive. He took me down the first and second rounds, and I spent those rounds on my back. But I almost armbarred him in the second round. And then in the third round, I inside tripped him and took him down. And he had not spent any time on his back. He did the dying cockroach. He let me climb right to mount and pound him out. That was the end of the fight, that takedown. So I had been working very, very diligently on my jiu-jitsu. I knew at some point I was going to run into a wrestler that had the ability to put me on my back. I better have some skills and be able to survive in that situation. And I spent a lot of time there. And then Randleman came out in both the first and the second round and took me down. And I spent the entire round just on my back. But I trained there enough to be able to survive and get through those circumstances and situations. And then in the third, I took him down. And he had not spent any time there. And that was the difference in the
It's a
fight.
difference between staying calm and collected. Because if you see a UFC guy like my good friend Rob Kahn, I don't know if you know Rob. He's a Gracie. He owns all the Gracie Tampa franchises.
Oh, okay,
And he's good friend with Hoyce. Poor Hoyce. I've had him on the show. He's a stiffy. Oh my God, Hoy. Do you know
I
Hoy?
love Hoyce.
Do you know?
He's a great guy.
Yeah, but boy, he does not fuck around, man. He is. One of my boys one time was says that he could roll around a little bit. So Hoyce goes, oh really? So right in the studio they went there, and Hoyce got him like in a ankle lock or some bullshit, and almost broke his ankle, and Hoyce goes, oh, that's just air on the joint. That's fine. But Rob Kahn, who's my friend and obviously pretty well trained. He's like, listen, the person that can remain calm and is comfortable and on his back is the guy that's going to win, because most people, like whether you're a freestyle wrestler, or folk style wrestler, when you get on your back, that's the fuck, you're fucked. You're fucked.
Yeah.
And
that's a foreign place for us. You fight and scrap to stay off of your back in wrestling. That's the goal.
Right.
You don't want to be on your back. That's the last place you want to be.
Giving up near
to see these jits guys scooting around on their butts and being very, very comfortable on their back. And actually, many of them want to be there because that's where they're going to get you out of position and get you into bad position and and submit you. So that was the antithesis of wrestling for me, and
what was your
very hard thing for us as wrestlers to figure out.
What was your go-to submission move on your back? Was it where you hooked the?
I was more interested in using my legs, using those long levers, creating a scramble, and finding a way to either get on top and reverse them, or get back to my feet so I could take them back down. My best and most common submission for me was an arm triangle. I think I got that in four different fights. That's what I caught Coleman with. And
if they're out there,
are very good at front headlocks, at front chokes, and arm triangles. Those are situations and positions we find in wrestling all the time. You're just not allowed to choke a guy in wrestling, but we know those positions for sure.
Right.
So when I shifted with Neil Melanson, my mentality from playing the jiu-jitsu game, which is kind of a path of least resistance mentality, and shifting to catch-as-catch-can wrestling, my submission game greatly improved. It was more aggressive, like wrestlers, and the wrestler's mindset. But a lot of the same submissions would present themselves when I was operating, looking through those eyes, those wrestlers' eyes, and those catch wrestling eyes. And trying to play the jiu-jitsu game just wasn't working for me. And that's what cost me the Barnett fight. Again, I'd been spending so much time to shore that part of my game up in case a wrestler took me down. Me and Barnett got in a scramble, and I pulled guard and put myself on the bottom. 9 times out of 10, Josh couldn't take me down. But I put myself there, and that was the end of the fight. That cost me that fight. I look back at that video, I was like, what the hell was I thinking? Why did I pull guard and pull this big gorilla on top of me?
Yeah.
It was stupid.
I think that's one of your title losses, I think.
My first title loss,
yeah.
and a very instrumental fight in changing the trajectory of my career, because I had to go back to the drawing board and figure out how I ended up in that situation. Why did I put myself there? Like I said, 9 times out of 10 in a scramble, he couldn't take me down.
No.
My wrestling credentials and creds were way better than his. Now he's a great submission guy. And you have to be careful. Good leg locker and all that.
Out of all your fights that you'd go back and look at your loss, that's probably the one that you're like, what the fuck? That's probably one of
that one was instrumental. All of them were instrumental. The Nogueira fight is one I'm very proud of. I mean, a lot of guys wouldn't have made it out of those situations with Nogueira, but Neil had prepared me. We knew exactly where he wanted to be, what submissions he tended to like to go to, and we prepared for that eventuality. And I probably should have made him wrestle me more and had a little more confidence in my ground game. I tried to make him stand. He'd had a couple knockouts, and people were questioning his chin. So our game plan was to go out, dirty box, get in his face, and try and hit him and take him out that way, like several other guys had done. That didn't work out. He was still standing there smiling at me, and I hit him with everything I had. I should have probably made him wrestle me more and had a little more confidence in my ground game.
I think that was after Lesnar, wasn't it? The Nogueira, it went Lesnar, Nogueira.
That was before Lesnar.
No, I'm sorry. Was it before? No,
Yeah,
no,
I think it was
no.
before Lesnar. No, it might have been after.
No, it
It might have
was
been after. You're right. It was after
Lesnar
Lesnar.
was 91 and
It was after Lesnar.
Nagara was
Oh one.
102.
Oh no, no, no. Let's see. No, I
Nag-
was 06, 07, 08.
so it would have been Brock Lesnar November 15th, 08. And
Yep.
then
Noguera.
Nagara would have been August 29th, 09.
Yep, that's right.
UFC 102.
They all they all start to run together. I
They
can't keep
they
them
really
straight.
do. They all say, tell me about the time. I remember, I think I might have been out there, and it was the time that you were supposed to fight Rich Franklin. Good, by the way, great friend of ours. And
I love Rich, but I was never. I don't remember ever
thought,
being set up to fight him.
oh,
Tito actually.
no, you were
Chuck was supposed to fight Rich. Actually, was supposed to fight Tito, and Tito had to pull out of that fight. That was in Vancouver.
yes,
And then Rich stepped up, and Rich fought Chuck, and Rich knocked Chuck out.
right, and Rich knocked Chuck out, and you were on the card.
No, I was watching.
Oh,
I was in retirement at that time.
I'm
I was
trying
at
to
that
think.
fight. I watched that fight, but I was on hiatus at that time.
Man, Rich, I don't know if
Came
you.
back and fought Tim.
I don't know if you and Rich are close, but
I love Rich.
Rich was always on our show, and he was just a great, former math teacher from Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And
Imagine getting out of line in his class.
no, fuck no. He what a great kid.
Amazing guy. Got to go to Iraq with Rich. Rich and I went to Iraq for 12 days back in 06. Morale visit, went to 6 different FOBs and had an amazing journey through Iraq and met a whole bunch of soldiers. 2 of the FOBs had mats, and we rolled the mats out and rolled with a bunch of those guys.
Did you roll with Rich?
I've rolled with Rich before. Rich is a great guy.
How's it go when you and Rich roll? How's it go with you and Rich? Because
I don't think we ever went seriously. I think we played around. I think we played around in Iraq on the mats. We played around.
What's Rich's strong? What's his strong? Like if you were scouting Rich and you really had to fight Rich back in the day, what would have been your scouting report on Rich?
Well, I think Rich's striking was underrated. He was he taught himself to be a southpaw intensely, even though he's right-handed. His striking was very underrated. His submission game was very, very good. He didn't have a strong wrestling background. So I think that would have been an area I would have tried to exploit. I would have tried to put him on his back and make him fight from his back, use the cage and dirty boxing and the clinch work to take some steam out of him and try to make him work and damage him from those positions. I mean, that was my style and my approach to just about everybody, frankly, and Rich would have been no different.
That's kind of how you dirty boxed him, and you felt like the first round would be like a dirty box, feeling the guy up, seeing where he's going, seeing what he's doing, see if he's running from you, seeing if he's going toe to toe, and then at that point, because I watched you so many times, 2 times live, and then then it seemed like by the end of the first or towards the beginning of the second, you had it figured out, kinda, and then you would figure, okay, I'm either going to have to, I'm taking him down because I've established my jab, I've established my dirty boxing, or I can stand with this dude. But you kind of determined there where you were going with it.
Exactly. Wanted to attach myself to him like a barnacle, make him try and scrape me off and take as much gas out of him as I can. Dirty box trip, inside trip, off balance, collar tie and punch from that attached position, and really just wear on a person, grind on them that way from the standing position against the fence, and then put them on the ground, make them scramble, make them try to get me off of them as much as possible.
Now in the UFC, is there any shit talking in the UFC, Randy? Like when do you guys do now? Of course, when you're cutting promos, fight promos. I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna kill everybody. You're a fucking pussy. You suck.
I never took that tact. I never.
I'm talking
did
about
that.
like in ring. Was there any one guy? I know you didn't. I know you'd never really shit talked in the ring. But were there guys that were shit talkers in the ring?
Well, you knew when you signed to fight Tito what was going to happen. I mean, that
Yeah, right,
he was the first to use that rhetoric as a weapon, both psychologically and for marketing purposes.
right.
And that came directly from Dana. That Dana was his manager before Zuffa bought the company.
Right.
That's the kind of thing that Dana likes. He likes to generate that heat, use that rhetoric as a psychological tool and a marketing tool. Make people believe there's real animosity between these two athletes to get them to buy a pay-per-view and see who's going to win. I mean, that's how that works. And that's still what he rewards to this day, and why guys like Chael Sonnen and, Conor McGregor and so many others guys, whether they won or lost, it didn't matter because they brought heat to those promotions and those situations and those fights. And
Does
that's
it
the kind of thing Dana likes to reward.
does
So
it blow your mind the guys like Hoist Gracie? Here you are. You went. I think you date back there to UFC 13. I
yep.
don't. So it all the way up till UFC 129. So you're one of those founding forefathers: Chuck, Tito, Rich Franklin, GSP.
Yep.
Sean Muscle Shark, BJ Penn. Those
Yeah.
guys. All those guys. The 2004 through 2010 guys. None of you guys, I think, made near the money that they're making now. I mean, like it's not. It's. I mean, what? Does it kind of not bum you out, or does it
Nah.
I mean, or were you, for the time of were you guys pretty well compensated?
I think for the time we were, you're mentioning a bunch of guys that were that top 3 or 4%, the
Right,
marquee guys that they were using to market the sport, and
right,
and we were compensated for that era pretty well. Certainly the most money I've ever made.
right.
And could it have been better? Should it be better? Should it be better right now? It absolutely should be better. Show me another professional sports endeavor where the athletes that fight on those cards make 13 to 15% of the take. And their job is to keep it under 20%. And they've done a very, very good job of doing that. There's no other professional sport in our society right now that's the case. I mean, football, baseball, hockey, all those, it's at least 50%.
Yeah.
And in boxing, it's 65 to 75%, depending on who's fighting on those cards. So we have some work to do as athletes in the sport of mixed martial arts in coming together, and creating some minimum standards for pay, getting all the things that every other professional athlete in our society gets. A 401k, some health care coverage, and those sorts of things are very, very lacking. They don't exist in our sport. And that's where the growth needs to happen in MMA. Give us the protections of the Muhammad Ali Act.
Yeah,
Eliminate
yeah.
these restrictive contracts. Separate the rankings from the promoter. That's way too much power. Why should the promoter be determining who's ranked and who's not?
Have like
That
a
doesn't
non
happen in boxing. It's an independent agency that
right.
does that. So these are some of the flaws and some of the growing pains that our sport is experiencing, and why there's two class action lawsuits out there right now with the way business is done in mixed martial arts. Now, the league class just got settled, and that money is going to start being distributed this summer to those 1,100 athletes. The Davis class is still hanging out there. It's going to take a couple more years, and there's injunctive relief wrapped up in that settlement. That's going to force them to change their contracts and change the way they're doing business. And until we as athletes come together and create a players association, a fighters association that has some teeth, that's willing to take on these promotions and develop some minimum standards for treatment and pay, and some of the other benefits that we as athletes should be getting, it's not going to happen. Why would the promoters do that?
Not to their mate
Oh,
to, not to their mate,
yeah.
not to not. So what does a Conor McGregor? I've heard like 40 million. For what does a guy like that make? Not
I
a
mean, Adam, I'm not privy to his contract. My understanding of when him and Rousey were kind of their two cash cows, they were both making around 5 million a fight.
Oh,
I
okay.
think Francis was coming in about eight million a fight.
I thought it was far more than that. I thought it was more than
No,
that.
and he made far more than that boxing Mayweather, and he made
Right,
far more than that with Proper 12, the liquor that
right.
that he sold. But and he made way, and all those guys that did those crossover boxing matches made way more money in those boxing matches than they ever made in MMA.
Does
And
McGregor
there's
ever
the
ever
disparaging difference.
does McGregor ever come back? Has he got it in him? Is he done?
No, I don't think so. I think he's trying to stay relevant. I don't see him fighting. I think there's a substance issue there. That's I don't I'm not trying to poke him.
No, but
I've only met the man in person once, and that was in Saudi Arabia. He's very gregarious personality. He was super nice to me, of course, but there's definitely something going on there. These domestics and all this other stuff that's going on outside of the cage are a real concern, and that tells me there's something else going on there.
right.
And that's a shame because he's an amazing talent. He elevated our sport in many, many ways. I'm not a fan of the rhetoric and the shit talk, frankly. And that was never my style. But
Never.
everybody's their own person, and everybody's got to do it the way they feel comfortable and want to do it. I understood why Tim Sylvia had to kind of talk trash and get there because for his own psychology, he had to get a little anger and animosity built up to be able to go out and do his job. Chael and so many of these other guys, that's all a marketing ploy. If you've ever met Chael Sonnen, he is not that guy. I've
No,
known him since school.
I met
He's
him.
a great guy.
We used to have him on
super nice
the
guy.
we used to have him on the show all the time when I was on Sirius XM, and he was the great. Like one time we were at the MGM and we were interviewing him, and it was going to be like 20 or 30 minutes, and next thing you know, he has a waitress here, and he bought us all drinks, like just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, have a few drinks. Like he was a really, besides you, he was probably, and Rich Franklin. He was probably, probably my top favorite guys. He was probably one of them. You by far, you like your reputation is the good guy. Like you always have been the good guy. And I mean, I know that you'll knock a guy out, and I know that obviously let me see, 3-time heavyweight champion, 2-time light heavyweight champion, I think.
3-3. I always count the interim championship against Chuck. They gave me a belt, so in my mind that counts.
3-3, 3-3, right, bud?
Yeah, absolutely.
So tell me about 61 years old, 4 grandkids.
About to turn 62.
Really?
Yep, next Sunday I turn 62.
Well, happy birthday to you. And,
Thank you.
And more importantly, what about this 2019 heart attack? What the fuck? I did some research.
Genetics, man. It was genetics. It wasn't a lifestyle issue. I'm healthy. I have polycythemia, very thick blood. I knew that.
I have it too.
When I moved to
I have
Vegas
it
to
too.
start working with the blood doc with Dr. John Fitzgerald on supplementation because TRT and all that wasn't allowed in our sport. There was a small window there for a while when Belfort and Danny were doing the TRT, but they closed that window. You weren't allowed to do that. Tough to be called the natural and pop positive for performance enhancing drug. So I tried to find natural means to, deal with my adrenals, raise my free testosterone levels and all that. And I did that through blood chemistry, getting a regular blood chem panel and natural supplementation, which anybody can do. The issue with TRT is once you start sticking that outside source of testosterone in your body, it shuts down your body's natural production. And I have naturally thick blood, so when I started the TRT
I had to say,
at 55,
I have to give double red blood cells every 112 days because I have that hematocrit,
hematocrit, they have me on a platelet thinner now.
Yep.
And I have to dump blood fairly regularly to keep my blood levels down because of the TRT.
I just gave last Thursday.
At 55, my testosterone levels at 55 were down to 170. I was in a sorry state.
You were growing a vagina.
Basically, going through menopause for sure.
I do TRT, and I think I'm about 900.
Exactly where I'm sitting.
But the thing about it is I got to keep with my blood because I have too much like milkshake blood, and
we're in the same boat there.
I've given 9.5 gallons of double red blood cells, or I would have had probably the same issue you may have had and I'm a lot heavier than you are, and so but my cholesterol's 152. And my iron level is 14.2. So as long as you keep up on it, you can stay on top of that. And that's probably what caused your event, right?
Yeah, they think it was definitely a factor in the heart attack. I had a plaque rupture from some scar tissue from an old car wreck in '94. That's the only one of my arteries that had any plaque in it. It was some scar tissue from that wreck. I broke my lungs and punctured my lung, and they think I probably damaged that artery. So when I was training, got a little dehydrated, I had a plaque rupture. That plaque ruptured in that artery. My blood did what it's supposed to do, went to that to plug the rupture, and my blood was so thick it occluded the entire artery. So thank God it happened when and where it happened. I was literally a half a mile from Cedar Sinai. I walked to the hospital
What a
and got a
stud.
stint, had a
What a
stint.
fucking stud. Got a heart
I
attack
had
and you
no
just.
idea I was having a heart attack for crying out loud. I just thought I had popped a rib. I thought this
Right.
is so weird. How did I pop a rib in a circuit?
Right.
So it was very
So
strange.
you
But
walk in and they say, Randy, you're having a moment here. Like you're having
oh, it
a.
was like NASCAR, dude. They
Yeah.
put me on the EKG and saw what was going on, and the clothes started coming off right there in the emergency room on a gurney, wheeling me to the cath lab to put a catheter in
Yeah.
and put a stent in and clear out that clot. They said I probably had 30 minutes and I would have been done.
Yeah. So if you would have been home or not around anybody or
Man,
something
a
like
month
that.
before I was hiking up Yosemite Falls,
Yeah.
sweating my butt off. If that had happened up there,
Dead.
I would have been toast.
You would not be the natural anymore. You'd be the
I would
stiffy,
not.
and
I
you
would
wouldn't be driving. You wouldn't be driving a Pro Mod. Now, I'd listen.
exactly
Here's
right.
the thing. I know that you wanted to try to start it in Virginia, but you still think.
I was hoping my first race would be in Richmond, Virginia this coming weekend. We were doing our final testing to get certified and get both my NHRA license, which I think I've completed now, and my Pro Mod certification. That meant I had to have so many clean runs
Yeah.
in that Pro Mod car. Well, we were having technical difficulties with a new motor, a new control center in that car. Uh, Gary was there helping me. He was an experienced driver and somebody who was helping me, kind of mentoring me and helping
Right.
me do that. I ended up only getting to drive that car once that day, and it was an eye opener. I was like, "Holy
You mean
crap!"
the 37 Chevy?
Yeah, the 37 Chevy, the
Yeah.
5 second car. I gotten used to these 9 and 10 second cars,
And now you're putting your ass in,
staging
and
and
now you're getting in
launching
a
and all of that.
now you're in a
And
five.
now I'm in this animal, and the front wheels don't even come down for 200 feet.
I
I
know.
mean, it's unbelievable the power.
I know.
And I was like, holy what the hell did I
Yeah.
get
Holy
myself
shit!
into here?
What the fuck did I wish for here?
Yeah, and so I need a good 10 or 20 runs in this car to get comfortable with that speed and power before I'm going to stage that car and line up against another guy for both his and my safety.
Right.
I need some more seat time. That's the truth
So
of the
we're
matter.
looking at because and I'm from Indiana and I usually hit the U.S. Nationals every year, and I'm super good friends with Ron Capps, Tony Stewart.
Ron's a great guy. I love Ron.
Tony Stewart's one of my best friends. If you ever see
Tony's
Tony,
a great guy too.
ask
Yeah.
him about me. He'll tell you.
Leah, his wife, Leah, amazing racer.
She now talk about tough.
Yeah.
That's the only person Tony's afraid of is her. Just because she could hop her ass in that car and go faster than he could.
Yeah, she's amazing.
And they just
She's
had a brand new
incredible.
kid. This is his first Father's Day, and so Tony's the top. He's the top of the points.
He's the point leader right now. Yeah, he's
Can-
doing amazing.
Yeah, and so I heard that the U.S. Nationals, might be your debut in the SCAG powered Jackal,
Looking good.
Tree
Yeah, the
Frog,
Jackal.
fucking
Yep,
37
I'm excited.
Chevy.
Can't thank the
Al
SCAG guys
Capone.
enough for accepting me to the team, and Randy for getting behind me as a driver and being patient as I get my feet under me. Actually, my butt under me. You drive with your butt.
Oh yeah, it's all ass. It's all
You got to
everything
feel
you
that
feel.
car and where that car's going. Your eyes can't keep up.
No.
It's something Frank.
And hold
teaches
on,
you
think
in
about this
drag
now.
racing
Now
school.
you're doing 210. Think about think about Ronnie Capps and Tony and those fucking.
It's 320, 340.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah.
Unbelievable.
They say that it's. I used to have Gary Selzy on all the time, and they used to say that it's like 4 or 5 G's taken off, and then like 6 G's when you throw the chutes. You actually.
Yeah, I'm hearing it's a 6G endeavor when you launch that car at the starting line.
Yep.
And you pop those chutes a quarter mile later, and it's a negative 2G grab.
Right.
And so there's an 8G swing there in a quarter mile. That's
Yeah.
the kind of power you're dealing with. And it is a whole new thing.
Now is the entire.
Counterintuitive, you're using the brake with your left foot and the gas with your right foot. There's no clutch unless you're in a pro stock car. And you're using a transit brake to launch that car.
Right.
And That basically holds the car in place once you stage it. You literally, when you pull that car into staging and stage it, you take your foot off, you mash the trans brake, take your foot off the brake, put the pedal to the floor. The car revs
Oh yeah, it gets
to
on.
8 or 9,000
It gets
RPM,
on its chip. It's
and
going.
you wait for that Christmas tree to go off,
Yeah, and then you.
and then you pull your finger off that trans brake, and that car takes off like a rocket.
And then you're on the shifter. You're immediately on the shifter because
Yeah,
you
you're
got to
either
grab.
shifting
You
it
got
or
to
it's set
grab.
up on a solenoid. Mine's set up on a solenoid, so in 1 second it's going to shift a second.
Right.
And in 2 seconds it's shifting the third. And by then, 3 more seconds later, your run is over. You're at the end of the track.
Well, then now, have they taught you how to take a chunk out of the clock? Have they taught you how to do that yet?
Take a chunk out of the clock.
Yeah. Take a
You're
chunk.
talking about staging.
Yeah. Take a chunk out of the light. How they take?
Yeah.
You can deep stage or you can shallow stage.
Yeah, deep staging is you have to be careful, but yeah, the whole staging thing. Those are all the procedures and the things I'm trying to get comfortable with and really get down so I can stop thinking about it.
Some drivers will start playing head games with you. Well, they'll they won't stage first. They'll make you stage, and you guys are on the fucking line trying to feel.
There's the little tit for tat at the line.
Yeah, and then the one guy he's gonna take a chunk out of the fucking clock so that he's got a better RT time. But you're actually gonna there's all kinds of fuckery that goes on. You know what I'm saying?
The gamesmanship is.
And people don't realize if you've never been to an NHRA event and there's just television doesn't do it any justice with regards to the amount, like when the big boys are up there, the top fuel guys, and how violent you look at that car and you're like, how can there be a human being in there holding the fuck on with that much violence, right?
Yeah, it's intense. The power is so intense, it snaps your eyes wide open.
Yep.
You can't blink. The smell, the sound, the feeling, you feel it in your guts. It's unbelievable. My first race, I got to go with Ron Capps in Pomona about 10 or 11 years ago. Might be 12 years ago now. And I got to go down in the car when he's being drug up to the starting line. Watch him get suited up. That face changes. He gets into fight mode, if you will. And then being there at the starting line with 24,000 horsepower lining up to take off. Each of those cars is 12,000 horsepower.
And those guys
when they launch, I mean, it is so intense. It is amazing.
You can't
fathom it. You
gotta take somebody there and to the starting line because you just cannot explain. You can't explain it. You're like, it's almost like when you watch the rocket launch or some shit. I remember the first time I went to UFC and I actually saw how hard a real hit was. It's much like that. As I was like, man, I can't believe a guy can get hit that hard and survive. It's much like that, but I think more intense. And
the sound, the blood, the sweat, all those things are very visceral at a fight, and it's a very similar experience when you're on the starting line in a car or standing by watching those cars take off. And that first race for me in Pomona 12 years ago, after that run, which was a very unique place to watch the race from, right there at the starting line, Ron is like, hey, man, you should go up in the box and sit with my family for the next run. So we went back to the pits, watched them tear that whole car down, rebuild that whole motor in an hour for that next run that was coming up.
52
and then
minutes.
We go up and sit in the box with his mom and his wife. He gets about a second into that run, and his car blows up. There's literally a fireball going down the track. And I'm like, oh my God, I just met this guy. He's the nicest guy. And now he's dead. I was shocked. I was literally in shock. And his wife and his mother don't bat an eyelash. They're smiling and carrying on. They know he's fine, but I had no idea. I had dinner with him that night.
Yeah.
He was fine. And he made ESPN because he was literally a fireball going down the track.
Well,
that's how much safety procedure and safety equipment is involved in this sport.
Really?
My mom was looking at me cross-eyed like, you're going to do what? And I'm like, well, trust me, Mom. I've seen the worst things happen on this track. Is it certainly not impossible that somebody could perish, but it's very safe. It's pretty
I
safe.
don't
The
think
Hans device,
I don't think there's
fireproof suits, and all
I
that.
don't think there's been a death since the Scott Coletta in Englishtown, and that was, they didn't have they've redone the sand pits since then. They've
Yep.
cut it from like 1,300 feet down to 1,000 so that you can get stopped faster. They've made
Right.
they got the Hans device now. John,
Yeah.
if John Forsch walked away from, really I don't want to say all you got to worry about, but really where you're the most vulnerable is like a side deal, going across and
Yeah.
shooting. That's where I think you're the most vulnerable.
Yeah. Hitting the wall.
Yeah.
Sometimes those cars get squirrely. Certainly those Pro Mod cars get squirrely.
Here's the one thing, though.
You know.
With racing comes fighting. There's a lot of times that crew guys will start. Man, who's gonna fucking fight? Who's gonna fight the SCAG Al Capone 37 Chevy when you got fucking a 4-time UFC Hall of Famer in there? Nobody's gonna fuck with you, Randy. I'm gonna say it right now.
I try to. I'm always smiling. I don't need to. I don't need to get
Now
in that mode.
to this day, my buddy Rob Kahn, even though he's just an instructor now, he hadn't fought I don't know how many years. He always has his fight shorts. No matter he could be going to a wedding and underneath his dress clothes, he's got his fight shorts on. Do you always got your fighting shorts on at all times?
Well, there's a few times I wish I had my mouthpiece in my cup, but I don't know about the fighting shorts. But yeah, you certainly always have that mode. That's always a place you can go. But I think, in my opinion and in my experience, most fighters, you're going to have to push them pretty damn hard to get them to that headspace where they're going to reach across.
Well, because they know, because most real fighters that are real fighters and not some weekend warrior bullshit, but accomplished, accredited, guys on your level, Hall of Fame, or a guy, let's say a guy that's been in the UFC, even just for a minute, but maybe had 5 or 6 fights. Even just that level. Those guys are so not looking to fight. They know that it's not going to be fair. They know they can absolutely whip the shit out of you, and it's just going to be a problem. It's going to be, you're going to get sued. It's just going to be, so it's going to take a lot for somebody
I think this is why martial arts and combative sports in general are so important, and why our kids should be involved in them, because there is a responsibility that comes with that knowledge. When you figure out how to check your ego and you get your ass handed to you, whether that's on a wrestling mat or up in that cage, it changes your perception of everything.
Yep.
And I've certainly had my ass handed to me plenty of times.
Who gave you the all-time, if Randy Couture was to say, who handed your ass to you the worst? Who's that one guy that handed your ass to you?
Well, Chuck was the only one that ever knocked me out.
Okay.
And that's a unique experience. You lose a little piece of time. Literally, 1 second you're there in the middle of a fight, and the next second you're laying on your back looking at the ceiling with 3 or 4 faces hovering over you to make sure you're okay. Like, what the fuck just happened?
Right.
And it's a weird experience. My fight record is 19-11. I didn't win all the time, but I think true championship spirit is how you deal with that adversity. And that's why combative sports is so important for our kids, because that's how life is. You're going to get knocked on your ass.
Absolutely.
And how you deal with that adversity is a direct result of your character. And nothing better than a combative sport to build that true character in a human.
I tell all my guy friends, if you want to toughen up your kid, just enter him in, like as he's in 4th or 5th grade, just get him involved into wrestling, folk style wrestling. That will toughen up your kid. It's a team sport, but it's an individual sport. And it will give you an all new appreciation for combative sports. Just folk style high school wrestling will toughen up your kid better than any. I mean, football. I love football. I love basketball. I love baseball. But folk style high school wrestling will teach your kid more discipline. Than any sport available, in my opinion.
I am 100% agree with that. And that is the foundation for the person that I am to this day. I started wrestling at 11 years old, for all the wrong reasons, to get the attention of a deadbeat father, a deadbeat dad that wasn't around. And he never saw me wrestle a single match in my entire life.
You're kidding me.
But I found the place where I flourished. I found that those coaches became that guy that filled that void. When I needed a kick in the ass, they were the ones that stepped up and did that. And when I needed an arm around me and a little, pat on the back or a Dutch rub saying, "Hey, it's going to be all right. Don't worry." They were the guys that did that too. Those coaches filled that void for me. And some of my best friends were those guys I sweated and bled with on that mat or on that in that cage. To this day, those are the guys I gravitate towards. And of all the other athletes I've got to rub elbows with, the hockey players and the rugby players are the most
Yes.
similar in mindset
Yep.
to wrestlers and fighters.
I remember my first day of middle school wrestling. We learned the single leg take it down and the switch. So with the switch from the down position and the single leg deep takedown from the up position was day one. The switch, and we had to practice the switch, like 100 different times. Yep. Go back, grab the leg, the whole 9 yards, and it's just I love this sport and. I remember one of my friends wrestled for Indiana State one time, and when I was at Indiana State, I wasn't on the wrestling team, but I was friends with some of the wrestlers, and Bruce Bumgardner came down there, and that's where he had went to school, and wow, I watched him wrestle like they're heavyweight. Oh my God, do you know Bruce, or have you?
I know Bruce very well. Bruce wrestled the same time I was wrestling Greco, and eventually became the executive director of USA Wrestling. 13 medals at the world level.
Yeah.
Bruce has won. He's an amazing competitor, a hell of an athlete, and a great representation of the character that wrestling builds.
But the nicest guy in the world.
Exactly.
I had an opportunity to meet him. Just hello, nice to meet you. Just very informal, but just you would think that guy was a fish. But he was just the nicest guy in the absolute world. So listen, Randy, we're shooting for the U.S. Nationals. Is that what we're shooting for? Yes, Indy. And this is all courtesy, again, none of what we talk about with regards to you getting part of Pro Mod and the NHRA. None of this could be done without Randy from SCAG and Metalcraft. That's right. Randy Glady, like I said, we connected, and he saw some character and resilience in me and wanted to get behind me and see me become a race car driver and be part of the SCAG Racing team. And I'm honored and happy to be part of that team. They're doing a great job. Very interesting what he does and who he is, and I'm very happy to be part of that. Have you met Maria yet, his assistant? Yes, absolutely. She's amazing. I call her the glue because she's the one that keeps everything together. I call her the glue. That's true. So listen, I put a SCAG deal together for Dion because Dion's a really good friend of mine. So when Dion first went to Colorado, he needed, of course, a mower. So I saw him on his Instagram. He was like, "Hey man, I need a mower." So I called him up personally. I go, "Hold on. Everybody in the world, X-Marks, Bad Boy, all these people who make mowers are probably, blowing you up right now." He's like, "Yeah, man." I said, "Listen, before you make your next move, let me make a call to my guy because I'd like to get you a SCAG." And he's like, "Oh, man, he has a property down in Texas. And so he owns a SCAG down there, and he knows how well-made SCAGs are and how just they're so rugged." And so I got him a Turf Tiger or a Turf Tiger. But here's the next marketing campaign for SCAG. You ready for this? Okay. Put you on a zero turn and Dion on a zero turn, and it says only Hall of Famers drive SCAGs. How about that? I like that. I need to get a Jackal for my ranch. Oh, I got a Jackal. I got one. Those things are cool. How cool is that thing? Oh my God. And have you seen the Tree Frog? I have. Yeah, I got one of those too. I got one of those too. He's having issues. I don't want to drive a mower on a hill that's that steep, right? Yeah, but that thing can go up like 52 degrees. Yeah, and he invented the Tree Frog to stick to that hillside. I thought that was really clever. I love this story. He told me, he's like, "Oh, Toro's really the only one we're competing against with the Jackal, and we hadn't made this piece of equipment yet. And Toro has the Dingo, right? And it's the only other company that makes a similar unit." And he said, "Well, what kills dingoes?" Jackal. And they looked this up, and it was the Jackal. That's why he made it. So he named his the Jackal.
And that just made me laugh out loud. I thought that was hilarious.
He is, and metal craft. They do so much work for the government and OEM, and it's such a larger company. But SCAG, he is. Let me tell you something. I don't know if he's saved NHRA, but he's certainly resurrected it. He has so many cars and endorses and funds so many different teams that he's so good for the sport, and he's just such a good dude. And when this guy was getting a hold of me saying, "Do you want to talk to Randy Couture about NHRA drag racing?" I thought somebody was screwing with me. Some guy named Nate or something. And I'm like,
Nathan. That's Nathan,
so
my
I kind of ignored him, right? I mean, I kind of ignored him. I'm like, Randy Couture does not drive NHRA, like whatever. So then Randy, I always mispronounce Randy's last name.
Randy
Randy Glady, my buddy, he texted me and said, "Hey, why aren't you returning the guy from Randy Couture's texts? I want you to have Randy on." I go, "Oh, I did that. Okay, no problem." So anything for Randy. He is just the salt of the earth, and he will get you going. And it would probably take take the rest of this year for you to get acclimated. And I would say, Randy, you probably will be a contender, starting next year. A guy like in the conversation of like, I know the J.R. Gray and Ricky Smith.
Yeah, J.R. I met J.R. in Joliet. Really interesting guy.
Justin Bond. I think those are some of the big swinging D's in the Pro Mod deal. And I think we'll be hearing Randy Couture, the natural. I think we will be.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I'm having a blast. It's very intense, and I know what I don't know. Let's put it that way. And I need more time in that seat to really feel comfortable and safe. And honestly, for that guy I'm lining up with too.
Right.
And that was, some of those guys' comments were like, "Well, man, I don't know if I want to line up with this guy. He's as green as they come." In that car, that's a bit crazy, honestly. And I don't think it's crazy. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to do the work.
Here's
I'm a diligent human.
Here's the thing.
I'm going to get comfortable and do this right.
Being the highest level athlete you can be in your particular sport, meaning Hall of Fame, six-timer, you're not going to do this until you feel you can do it at a competitive level. And so you're not a guy that's getting a shot and the time frame's only this big. You're a guy that, again, has been recognized as one of the greatest of all time in your sport. And so with that comes knowledge and patience. And you won't do this until you feel comfortable and safe. You won't, even it may not be Indy. It might be the next one. But that's the thing about a guy like you, Randy, that's on the highest level of what you do professionally. You've attained that highest level. People that have a mentality like that, like you do, usually take their time. I'm sure there was probably many a times. I don't know if you ever called off a fight or you knew you were behind or you weren't ready. But it's much like whether you're ready or not for a fight. I'm sure there were some fights that you went into that you were like, you know what? I'm probably not as ready as I need to be.
Only one. The Van Arsdale fight.
Really?
I was struggling with a staph infection in my right knee for 6 weeks going into that fight. I probably should have called out of that fight, to be honest. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it.
You won it,
no way.
You won it.
I won, but that's the most tired and the most like crap I've ever felt in a fight, to be honest. And Mike didn't know that. Mike was just as tired as I was. I was looking across that cage going into the third with my hands on my knees, and he had his hands on his knees looking at me, and I smiled and winked at him and made myself stand up and start jumping in place like, come on, let's go. And I saw his face drop, and I knew I had him.
So for optics, you're like, I'm going to act like I got some energy here, even though
I had to suck it up.
I think you got him in a.
Let's go get this done.
If I remember right, I think you choked him out.
Submission, the anaconda choke in the third round. I tried it 2 or 3 other times early in the fight and didn't get it. He launched me. I got some frequent flyer miles in that first round of that fight. He hit a hip toss on me, and man, I probably needed a parachute myself. But that was one of those fights where I probably shouldn't have fought. But that just wasn't me. I wasn't going to pull out of a fight. I sucked it up and got through it.
I might make Indy this year. If I do, don't forget. Don't act like you don't know me, bitch, when I roll up to your pits, okay? Because I'm going to be rolling up with Randy, okay? That's who I'm going to be rolling up with.
Randy and Nathan asked me if I'd do Bubba and be on the Bubba Nation. I said, man, I've been in the Bubba Nation for years.
Yeah, you've been like, I've been doing Bubba since '06. I've been doing,
Absolutely.
I've been in the studio. I mean, and so when I knew it was real, when I really knew that it was Randy, when I really knew that it was Randy Couture, who really is interested in pro mods through Randy from SCAG, I'm like, fuck. And then there was a fuck up in time because I thought it was 11 o'clock Eastern, so I was already ready.
And we were freaking out too.
And most people
got the Zoom email,
and so most people I would have said fuck it, But I'm like, no, you know what? I went back and looked at the text, and it did say Pacific time. That's my bad. Plus, I ain't doing my good friend Randy Couture like that, and I'm not doing my good friend Randy from SCAG like that. So, listen, as we get closer, Randy, as you make more runs, as you feel more comfortable, let's do this again. Let's do this again, my friend. I could bullshit with you all day.
I would love to. I would love to, man. I would absolutely love to. I really appreciate you having me on and give me a chance to explain where I'm at and what's going on and why we're not going to make Virginia. And I'll be rooting for all the SCAG guys that will be racing there next Saturday. I am absolutely going to get a lot more seat time here in July. I've got most of July off. And we're trying to figure a track that I can get on and get a bunch of runs in Al Capone and get used to this power and speed of this 1937.
Now, here in Bradenton, Florida, we got a drag racing school down here in Bradenton, Florida. And
Frank Hawley's been amazing.
Yeah.
And I did Hawley school here in Vegas for 2 days. That was where my first runs in the car. And what blew me away and what connected me to Frank right away is all about the psychological part of the race game.
Yeah.
And that was something that tickled me and brought up everything that I know from wrestling and fighting and all the mental skills that we've developed to deal with the adversity of walking out in the center of that mat by yourself or walking up into that cage in your board shorts in front of 20,000 people by yourself. And the same things apply to this race car. And so I got to apply a lot of those same mental skills, and Frank brought all that to light for me to this racing that I've developed through years and years of fighting and wrestling.
That big 502 cubic inch motor is just Chuck fucking Liddell that needs to be that needs to be tamed. That's all. I guess got to think. I got to fucking hold on to Chuck and just strangle the shit out of him. Let me go.
Absolutely correct.
All right, Randy. Hey, man, as we get closer, let's do updates, my friend. Okay.
Sounds great.
All
I
right,
appreciate
Randy.
you, Bubba.
And
have a great day,
I
brother.
appreciate you. I appreciate Randy from SCAG, and I appreciate we'll have you on here soon, okay, bud?
Sounds great, brother.
Thank you, buddy. Randy Couture, ladies and gentlemen, 6-time champion, a Hall of Famer, great friend of the show. And I'm just so excited for him. More importantly, I'm excited for my good friend Randy from SCAG, who has gotten behind Randy Couture and given this guy an opportunity to do a dream, if you will. All right, good little extra credit, if you will. I'll see you guys tomorrow.